Sverige är ett avlångt land och flyget behövs både idag och i framtiden för att folk, företagare och familjer snabbt och enkelt ska kunna ta sig fram. Klimatutmaningen är på riktigt och det är viktigt. Vi vet att det går att flyga både ansvarsfullt och hållbart. Därför antog vi utmaningen att genomföra the perfect flight, den perfekta flygningen. Målet är att använda så lite fossilt bränsle som möjligt under en flygresa, att reducera klimatutsläppet maximalt. Vi gav ett team på B.R.A i uppdrag att se över alla delar. Flygplanet, bränslet, flygvägen, flygtekniken.
Alltså vi använder bara 60%.
Just det.
Det är som att vi har biobränsle.
Mm. Det blir 4 kilo då.
Ja.
Så hur bra kan det bli? Vad är den perfekta flighten?
Welcome to Stockholm Bromma Airport, to Parsons Regional Airlines, and to this event that we call the Perfect Flight. I'm really happy to see so many of you here today. We are here together with our partners. It's ATR, AirBP, Neste, Halmstad City Airport, and Bromma Airport, Swedavia. In Sweden, the climate and the aviation has been a hot topic for about 1 year now. In the same time, aviation is crucial to a country like Sweden, that is a big country. We, with our route network with 17 destinations in the country, we help people to travel from the very up north and all the way down south. Our event today is created to explain that the emissions from the aviation is possible to reduce already with today's technology. It's not the traveling by air itself that should be reduced, it's the emissions. My name is Ulrika Matsgård. I am the commercial director of Parsons Regional Airlines, and we are going to keep this seminar in English due to our international guests from France, Italy, Great Britain, to just mention some of them. Let me introduce to you my colleague, Anna Soltorp. She is head of sustainability in Parsons Regional Airlines. She initiated this day, and she will guide you through the rest of the seminar. Again, welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to see that so many of you have come here today to our seminar, The Perfect Flight, where the focus will be on the need for regional aviation to connect people and to show that even if we have a long way to go before we reach our goals of being fossil-free, 100%, we can still fly responsible and sustainable already today. We have many interesting people that we will listen to on this seminar. But before I ask the first speaker to enter the stage, I would like to say a little bit about Broughton's regional airlines and our sustainability work. Our main goal is to be fossil-free by 2030. It's a very ambitious goal, of course, but we have a plan about how to get there. First of all, we have to reduce the emissions where they occur at the aircraft when we fly. So we fly more and more ATR turboprop aircrafts. They are the most climate effective aircrafts for short distances, and the emissions will be much lower than with the equivalent jet aircrafts. The second thing we do is to make our emissions as green as possible by using as much biofuel as we possibly can afford and get hold of today. And sustainable biofuels are expensive, and they are not there in sufficient quantity for us yet, but we have decided to stimulate the market and the demand. That's why we have, as the first airline in 2017, started offering biofuel directly to our customers. This year, we decided to take it a little bit further, and we invented a new class, a new ticket, environmental class, where biofuel is included in the ticket price to make it easy for the traveler to make a right sustainable choice. But as you understand, even if we fly efficient aircrafts and use biofuels, we will still have emissions left. So this year we decided to climate compensate and offset for 110% of our emissions of greenhouse gases. As you know, every trip starts and ends at an airport. And our airport is Bromma Stockholm Central Airport, where, wow, well, this, as you know, it's a historical building. Things can happen here, right? And Bromma is very good because it's close to the city, it's close to the business areas in Stockholm, and it's also good for flying to some of our many destinations in Sweden. But Bromma is also a sustainable airport, and the woman who is the head of all this, Mona Glans, will now tell us more about the sustainability work at Bromma. Give her an applause, please.
Thank you. My name is Mona Glans, and I'm the airport director of Bromma Stockholm Airport. Swedavia and Bromma Airport's purpose is together we make it possible for people to meet. And with those words, I would like to welcome you all to Bromma. And Bromma is an airport with a very unique history. Inaugurated in May 23rd, 1936. So this old lady, at least I think it's a lady, will be 83 years next Thursday. The new terminal was opened in 1954, and the year after, it was the first charter flight from Sweden and Bromma, and it was to Mallorca, 3 stops on the way. We are also the airport, Europe's first airport with asphalt runways. I would like to tell you a little about Bromma's and Swedavia's work with environment and sustainability. And regarding zero emissions, Swedavia has long worked with great focus to reduce the climate impact of aviation in general. In this important work, it's crucial to first set goals and develop and monitor our own operations, of course. Only when we have shown the way, we can have a strong influence on others. In our own operations, we have set the ambitious target of zero emission of fossil carbon dioxide by 2020, and it's nearby. And all indications are that we will achieve this on all 10 airports. We were already climate neutral in 2006. All 10 Swedavia airports are certified at Airport Carbon Accreditation, and the highest level. We also had a sustainability prize for refueling facilities here on Bromma. In both 2018 and 2019, this year, Bromma received this Sustained Performance Award for its refueling facilities. And it's the Joint Inspection Group, JIG, which sets international standards, handed out the award. And it was in intense competition between 180 largest airports in the world. And little Bromma took home the prize. And that's because of good working procedures among employees. And we are aware of and very good at reporting irregularities. Using the portal provided by JIG, we can also find out about other airports reporting and then learn from their mistakes in order to avoid having the same problem. We are also very proud of what we call RVIS. It's Runway Weather and Surface Condition Information System. And the benefit for the airport is that we have a much safer runway condition, more efficient winter field maintenance, less fuel, less de-icing on the runway areas, and of course, reduced costs. And over the last year, we have had several airports visiting Bromma to learn more about this system. And of course, we are very proud to be one of the first airports to install this system. I will also tell you about the runway lighting system. We carried out an upgrade of the airport's runway lighting system with the installation of center lines lights on the runway and taxiways. And the new runway lighting facilities includes new LED lights on both runway, center line, and TDX lights. And this runway lighting facilities entail a high degree of automation, which means most things can be controlled remotely. And of course, Swedavia and Bromma has a lot of things to tell you, but we have 5 minutes today, so I will stop here and ask you to go to our website, swedavia.se, and you can read a lot of our work with sustainability. Thank you.
I would like us to hear some voices from a region talking about the importance of regional aviation. Can we have that arranged now? Good.
We are at Hotel Tylösand on the west coast in Sweden, and my name is Elisabeth Haglund, and I'm the general manager of the hotel. It's very important to me that I have the opportunity to fly domestic, because I go to several meetings in Stockholm, and I really want to do that in an efficient way. So normally the meeting starts at 10, I'm there at 10, and then I can go home in the evening, and that's very nice. I think it's very important for the region to have an airport, a local airport. You know, a lot of our guests, they are coming from all over Sweden, and Sweden is a long country.
My name is Eva Teljegård, and I'm the managing director for Heléns Rör. So we provide steel tube and bar solution for the Scandinavian industry. And we have our head office here in Halmstad, and we have our sales offices located in middle of Sweden and northern Sweden. The local airport is of very big importance to reach our sales offices, as well as reaching customers and getting business partners coming here.
My name is Claes Nevreus. I'm a account director at an advertising agency called Uncle Unicorn, and we are at Halmstad City Airport. We have a Stockholm office as well as Stockholm clients. We have to be able to get fast to other places for, in our case, for photo shoots or to meet with new clients or with existing clients. That's important for me to be able to wake up at home, work in Stockholm during the day and come home for dinner. This region is thriving because people can fly here, do their business, meetings, pleasure of course as well. I think that's thanks to the airport.
Some of my friends, they live in Halmstad, they like it very much, but they work in Stockholm. Without an airport, it wouldn't work.
Parts of Sweden would die without an airport, and I think it would be devastating for the country as a whole. The population would be concentrated to a couple of big cities, and the countryside or the regions would more or less die.
And Sweden being a big country with a scattered population, meaning that we need to empower the regional airlines to be able to work with these questions and with the sustainable technique development, because flying is here to stay.
Flying is here to stay, and the regions depend on regional aviation. I would like a local politician to enter the stage. Jonas Bergman, you're mayor of Halmstad. The stage is yours. Give Jonas an applause.
Thank you. Halmstad is a city on the west coast of Sweden. We have a population of 100,000 and an annual growth of 1,500. We have widespread forests. We have a magnificent countryside and endless beaches. We are a city where people want to live and a city where people want to work. Thousands of people commute to and from Halmstad every day, most of them actually by train. We have more commuters than the average municipality, both inbound and outbound. And we do have excellent train connections to Gothenburg in the north and to Malmö, Copenhagen in the south. So our problem is Stockholm. Going by train to Stockholm is, under the best of circumstances, a 4.5-hour trip, normally a bit longer than that. So what does that mean for Halmstad and for our local businesses? Well, corporate services is the biggest industry in Halmstad today, and Stockholm is the largest corporate service market in Sweden. Many of our local companies in growth industries are depending on the possibility to travel to Stockholm to meet customers and bring business and job opportunities back to Halmstad. A few years ago, before I was a full-time politician, I worked as an IT consultant with a lot of customers right here in Stockholm. We could never have recruited these customers without the possibility to travel to Stockholm over day. And thanks to the airport, we could also invite these customers to training seminars on site in Halmstad. Nowadays, I actually don't fly very often, but when I do, I always meet old colleagues from the IT industry on their way to Stockholm to bring new business back to Halmstad. But we also have a growing event, meeting, tourism and hotel industry that is also highly dependent on easy access to our city. But money is not everything. Life also has other qualities. Thanks to the airport, we have highly educated people today that has the option to live and start a family in the amazing environments of Halmstad and the Halland County, and still work with customers on the other side of the country. And since we also have a university with a strong focus on innovation, we have a great opportunity to supply our growing local companies with employees. In Halmstad, we also have one of Sweden's largest and fastest growing military garrisons, hosting the only air defense regiment in the country. They also train mechanics from all over the world in servicing the Swedish jet fighter JAS Gripen, and the airport is of course vital to our armed forces. And adding to that, the airport provides us with a landing strip for ambulance aircraft, rescue aircraft, and our voluntary forest fire inspectors that helped keep our county safe last year when we saw fires consuming enormous amounts of forest all over Europe. With that said, thanks to the airport, Halmstad is more prosperous, more attractive, and faster growing than we would be without the airport. But we are also, of course, well aware that air traffic has an impact on the environment and on the climate, and therefore we are constantly working on lowering our own emissions. All our ground vehicles are today run on biofuel. We offer rental bikes for arrivals and charging stations for departing passengers. Our airport building is covered with solar cells that provides us with our own electricity, and all lighting has been replaced with low-energy LED lamps to further reduce our environmental impact. But most important, we have partnered up with B.R.A. and Airbnb and Neste to provide biofuel in all our departing flights. Because we wanted to show that it is possible to combine two thoughts. We can work both actively with reducing our impact on the climate and on the environment, and give our businesses the best conditions for growth and for creating new opportunities. We want to be a part of leading the transition to a more environmentally friendly air traffic, and that transition has only just begun. But I hope that in the future, in the near future, every flight will be perfect. Thank you.
We'll do our best to achieve that, won't we? And Halmstad is one example of a region where the airport is very important. Sweden has many regions and it's a vast country. I'm very happy to welcome Peter Larsson from Swedish Regional Airports Organization here to talk a little bit about what you are doing.
Thank you, Anna. Well, thank you all for inviting me and to participate in this historical event, The Perfect Flight. And many things that already said today, I would underline and say that it's similar from example, for instance, in Halmstad to almost all our other airports. My first slice, thank you. My first slice is a description of who we are. And at the moment we are 34 airports, and all of them are locally owned and driven by normally the local municipality. 2 of them are private, and you could see Halmstad as one of them. In number, we are not that big. The amount of passengers is some million when we're talking of a total of something like over 30 million in Sweden on a yearly basis. But still, the connectivity to reach almost every region and part in Sweden, that's the key thing for us. All of a sudden, you could describe Sweden on a European map, and I try hard to make the distance exactly as possible, so exactly as possible. But in school in Sweden, we used to do this in the lower grade to estimate the distance in Sweden, and we all have this mind figuring on our back of our head. In this case, we could estimate that Sweden is something like, from the southern part is compared to the Mediterranean, and up to the high north is the Baltic Sea. So from Gdansk down to La Côte d'Azur, that is actually Sweden. So when we heard about the perfect flight, we are talking about Montpellier in southern France, a nice wine district. And I don't know how much wine you took with you when you entered this morning. But anyway, compared to this map, the capital of Sweden could be something like Milan in northern Italy. This map, it's funny to see, but actually that is several European countries. And for instance, the Great Lake of Vänern in Sweden, the largest Swedish lake, that's the area of the nation of Switzerland. So Karlstad around the lake is something like Geneva, Basel, and Lucerne, and Bern in Switzerland. With that map, I just want to underline much of what already has been said about connectivity. When we talk about motorways and high-speed trains, if you go up in the high north, you can't see any motorways, or some of the areas don't even have connectivity with trains. So the aviation is so vital to us. I just want to end up and say that many things of what Mona already said that the Swedavia airport is doing, that is similar to many of our airports. We try to be climate neutral, meaning all the things we are doing on the ground. And now we hope we could support the airliners to also be climate neutral. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh. And Sweden has a tradition that we are very proud of public and private sectors working together to create wealth and progress. And the government's initiative Fossil-Free Sweden is a good example of this, where industry sectors create roadmaps and set goals for a fossil-free future. And lucky enough, we have Fossil-Free Sweden's expert Malin Strand here today, who I welcome to tell us a little bit more. Welcome, Malin.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here, and I was really excited to be traveling with this perfect roller coaster. No, just kidding. I know the pilot is here. I felt very safe. I work for Fossil-Free Sweden, and that is a government initiative with the aim of increasing the speed of climate action among Swedish companies, municipalities, and organizations. As Anna said, we have worked with several sectors. 13 business sectors have developed their own roadmaps for fossil-free competitiveness. And one reflection is that they really do this because of competitiveness. They don't do it to be kind. They absolutely don't do it because we force them, because we don't. They do it because they increase their competitiveness, and they want to still be a part of the market when the demand is shifting to green. And they see it as a way to be an attractive employer, to attract the students that now have higher ambitions and requirements of their employer. So competitiveness is a motive for these 13 sectors. And they are really heavy emitting sectors. It's, for example, steel, 11% of the emissions in Sweden. It's the mining sector, 9% of the emissions in Sweden. It's the cement industry, 5% of the emissions in Sweden. It's aviation and trucks and so on, 13 sectors. And for the aviation sector, the target is fossil-free flights, domestic flights in Sweden 2030, and all flights departing from Sweden fossil-free in 2045. And that would be a challenge, but it's really possible to manage. And this event today and this perfect flight is an example of that. And these actions are really important, both to show that it's possible, but also to create a demand for biofuel, to create a demand and to, in the long run, create production of more biofuels, which is needed, and hopefully production of biofuels in Sweden, which will be possible to cover both aviation, which is a small part, and road traffic. And biofuel production in Sweden also means other benefits. For example, more jobs, growth in areas that are not in the cities, these forest areas. So there are many benefits of making the aviation fossil-free. And with that, I say thank you.
Thank you, Malin. So now we've heard a little bit of a national perspective on this. And different industries, of course, depend on regional aviation. And there is one industry that is growing and that has a need for sustainable transports. It's the incoming industry that involves the whole world of tourists and people wanting to come to Sweden. We have Anna Haag today, who is expert at Visita. I would like to welcome you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for inviting me here to this important and very forward-looking event, I must say. My name is Anna Haag and I work for Visita. And Visita is the hospitality industry of Sweden. And it's part of the tourism industry. It's a big part, but we also have to connect very close with our colleagues in the transport sector, in the trade and other experience companies, etc. So we all are part of the tourism industry. I'm in the age when I need those glasses, so I think I put them down here to keep my time. Yes. We have more than 5,200 member companies of Visita. It's hotels, restaurants, cafes, of course, but it's also camping sites, amusement parks, ski resorts, etc. So it's a huge industry, in fact. We have been steadily growing, as Anna said, and we are very happy to do so, because it's quite unique for an industry to grow in these days when everything is digitalized, because we also grow with people. So we want to continue to do this, but we realize, of course, that it must be in a sustainable way. We have almost doubled our turnover since 2010, and we have created more than 100,000 new jobs. We are locally based. That means that our money and our people don't go elsewhere. We stay here. But it also have an impact. We must be very creative. We must listen to our customers. And of course, hospitality is in our DNA. So why do the hospitality industry need the perfect flight within and from outside Sweden? Well, because the whole tourism industry must be sustainable, including transport. It must be sustainable in all three aspects. Environment, as we are talking about today, but also socially and economically. And there we have to work together so that all parts of this tourism industry can be prosperous in the future. And as we heard, air transports are fundamental for Swedish tourism. We are a sparsely populated country, as you saw on the map, and we have long distances within itself and from abroad. So without sustainable aviation, there will be much less tourism, and that means much less jobs and attractive places. So right now, we are developing a new tourism strategy with the aim to make Sweden the world's most sustainable destination in 2040. We might be there even before, but we want to be honest and transparent with what we are doing, so we have the aim to be there in 2040. And in that aim, we must, of course, include the air transport. And as we heard, we are already up into 2030 here, and it makes us very, very happy. And we want to continue to work very closely together with the aviation industry. So what we need, of course, is to develop carbon-neutral fuel for all transports. We talk about aviation here, but we have problem elsewhere too. We have the big boats, passenger. We have cars, of course, and we have the buses. And just last Monday, we had an interesting meeting together with Anna from B.R.A. and other companies from both taxi, bus, boat, train, and of course aviation. And we discussed how can we reach the goals of being sustainable in 2040 together. What do we need to do here and now? Very specific, very concrete. And what will happen tomorrow? Because we see new needs and new behaviors from our customers, the visitors. It was a very open and creative meeting. The Swedish tourism industry realized that we must work together to develop this. for the future visitors. So, if you want to know more about this future work that we are doing very closely together with the transport industry, and I represent Visita, but I also represent a small organization, but big when it comes to the network, called Svensk Turism. And it's within Svensk Turism that we do this strategy, including all our important transports. So, it's just also a recommendation for our friends from other countries. Involve the hospitality industry and the tourism industry in how to solve the problems for the future, because we don't want to stop meeting each other. We must meet, and we must also meet by air, but it must be done in new ways in order to reach the important goals that we are all aware of that must be done. So if you want to know more about our job, you can go in on our webpage. It's called visitthefuture.se. We have done a lot of research also on the future for not only for us, but for the society as a whole, and trying to take the consequences down to what it's going to mean for our business. So once again, thank you for letting me come here, and good luck.
Thank you, Anna. So now we've heard a lot about the importance of sustainable aviation, sustainable transport, regional aviation on different levels, from the local to the international level. So now the question is, what does it take to fly sustainable? How good can it get? How did you do it this morning? Meet our perfect captain, Johan Molarin. Johan, do you need assistance? No.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Johan Molarin, and I was the captain on this flight. I've been working on this project from the very beginning with Anna, and it's very exciting because it's about technology that exists today. It's what we can do with what we got today. So it's not about the future, it's what we can do right now. And the ATR is already a very fuel-efficient aircraft, and I think the public in general think that we consume a lot more than we actually do. So for this presentation, we want to compare the ATR with a jet aircraft that is used on the domestic market, and also an eco car to try and compare with each other. So how much does a jet aircraft how much fuel will a jet aircraft use on the same flight from Halmstad to Bromma? And we'll try and visualize this. There we go. We can have the second slide there so everyone can see. So the jet aircraft uses a full can of these, and also an extra 1.5 liters, so 21.5 liters of fuel is what we use here. And then we also have the eco car, which is the red line here. The eco car is using 16.6 liters, and this is per passenger, so yeah, it's not the total, of course. 16.6 liters of fuel per passenger, and this figure we came up with. We took an eco car that use 3.9 liters per 100 kilometers of travel distance, and we got the average passengers in the car is 1.2, and that number comes from WWF. So that's down here. Now the ATR is using 12.8 liters of fuel for this flight, and this is actually exactly what we got today as well. We calculated this to be like this, so it's fairly accurate. So what have we done now differently from other flights? We can move on to this one. Yes. Well, we went to air traffic control center outside Arlanda, and we asked them, can we fly the most direct route for this flight? And they say, yes, of course. This is a little bit of a problem for them because we have Arlanda close by, and they want us to, basically stay out of the way for them because the big jet's coming. But this flight, so usually they want us to descend and go a little bit lower, which consumes more fuel. But today we came in high, stayed high as long as possible, and then we turned in and made a continuous descent landing, which is fuel-wise the most economical way. We had a slightly higher cruising altitude. We use this all the time, but we've been calculating to get the right altitude, especially for today. We descended with a lower thrust setting. Normally we descend with 240 knots. Today we descended with 200 knots, and that saved a bit of fuel as well. It gained maybe 1.5 to 2 minutes to the time about. We also used a rearwards center of gravity, which reduces the drag. So, if I remove this, this is what the fuel that we actually used on the ATR. If we then look further than that, we used 50% of biofuel. So the actual fuel that is fossil that we used per passenger today is this little can here. So as you can see, it makes a big difference. So the question is, why don't we do this every time? Why don't we use the same? Well, we can't do much about air traffic control. They give us the most direct route every time they can, but there are a lot of aircraft in the air, so we need to make way. And also, we try and fly on the most fuel-efficient altitude. We have programs that help us find the best altitudes. We will, this autumn at Brotans, we will, when we have our annual crew training, we will bring this subject up and raise awareness of how we can fly more environmentally friendly. So we will try and spread the word even more. And as Anna mentioned earlier, you can actually buy a fuel ticket with us. So this is not a goal that's far away. This is quite realistic. Maybe we use a little bit more than this, but it's quite realistic to be able to fly in this instance and from Halmstad to Bromma on around 5.8 liters of fuel. And I can also mention that we calculated together with Anna here and our colleagues Marcus and Johan that we would save 110 liters, but on this actual flight we saved 116 liters of fuel. So it was, I would say it was a success.
Stay on the stage, stay on the stage. This is really exciting, isn't it? And I think we don't have so many questions from the audience today, but if there is one question for Johan, the first one who raises their hand can ask the one question. Yes.
Yes, my name is Jonas. I'm from the region of Halland. Of these 4 things that you've done with this eco flying, which one is the most important?
Well, the direct route is very important because it makes an impact, but then also correct power setting in different stages of the flight is quite important, and that's very much dependent on the wind on that particular day. So if you have headwind, you want to go a little bit faster so you can go through the wind at a shorter amount of time. If it's tailwind, you want to stay in that tailwind as long as possible, so then you can reduce speed a little bit. Yeah, I would say that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Kan jag ta med mina?
Well, you can bring them with you if you want to. Maybe I can help I take the small one.
Air BP would want it back, maybe.
And as you have understood, the choice of aircraft is very, very important for the result of a perfect flight. The flight today was performed with an ATR 72-600 turboprop, and I'm lucky I have Tom Anderson from ATR here today to talk a little bit about the aircraft. Welcome, Tom.
Yeah, thanks. Well, on behalf of ATR, we're very, very happy and proud to be here today for the perfect flight. And to make a perfect flight happen, one of the things you have to start with is, well, in all candor, the right aircraft for the perfect flight. So we start with an aircraft that burns 40% less fuel than a regional jet, which means about 4 tons less per flight. And we have an aircraft that was really optimized and designed for the beginning to do these types of flights. And so we choose turboprop propulsion technology, which is the most efficient. In a jet engine, you take a small amount of air and impart a large velocity change. And for an ATR, because of the propeller, we take a large amount of air, impart a smaller velocity change, which is more efficient. And for the communities around, it's much more quiet. And then when we go into the flight deck, we have this amazing Thales-supplied flight deck with a lot of software tools that allow Captain Johan and Anna and the pilots to fly the aircraft the most efficient way. And the platform of avionics that we use is allowed to be software upgradable. So Brothens is using the most advanced standard of the flight deck that we have that allows them to pick and choose different features to optimize the flight. And I think many people who've traveled regionally in the past, they think getting on an airplane is noisy, smelly, and uncomfortable. And we've designed the airplane with the passenger and the traveling communities in mind. So wide, comfortable airplane, everyone either has a window or an aisle. It's a stand-up cabin so people can walk around, large overhead bins, quiet. So we want traveling on our aircraft to be the most ecological way to get from point A to point B, but we also want it to be a very comfortable way to get from point A to point B. And I think part of what inspires us at ATR is when you listen to the stories of these different communities we serve. As humans, we're social animals. We want to connect. We want to work together. We want to share each other's experiences. We want to see family and friends. And our mission is not just to build airplanes. Our mission is to connect people and connect communities in the most responsible way possible. And in order to do that, we don't just think about building the aircraft we do today. We have to think into the future. Because since the beginning of the jet age to today, there's been about an 80% improvement in the efficiency of aircraft. But now that's not going to take us to the future. We need to continue to work with partners to increasingly use biojet fuel, which takes this 40% improvement that I mentioned and takes it even further. And then we need to work on things like hybrid and electric propulsion systems. So we take that 40% improvement that I discussed and go even a step further. So I think, at ATR we have 200 customers in 100 countries, and we're particularly proud of the relationship we have with Brothens and what service we provide to Sweden. And we're here to celebrate what we've done so far today, but then also let you know that we don't stop moving. We're inspired by what we need to do for the future. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. So, when we have the right aircraft, we need to fill it with the right fuel. And sustainable fuel, biofuel, is of very, very big importance. It's still rare and expensive, but we're hoping for a future where we get more biofuel and better prices, of course, so we can use up to the 50% that we are allowed to blend into the existing aircrafts today. We're not there yet, but we're hoping to get there. Today we have both our supplier and our producer of sustainable biofuel with us. It's Tom Parsons from RBP and Andreas Teir from Neste. Please enter the stage.
Thank you. I'm Tom. You can see that we work for established corporate partners, and we have to walk up the stairs, not up the front of the stage. I'll maybe start and talk from the aviation fuel supplier perspective, and then I'll pass over to Andreas to talk a bit more about the sustainable aviation fuel product itself. So I just want to before I start, really recognise Anna for all the great work that she's done to bring this event together. It's been a real privilege for us to be a part of it, and an incredibly smooth day. So thank you, Anna, and the rest of the team. To talk a little bit about what we see our role as the fuel supplier, we take a very broad approach to this. We kind of start with what impact we can make ourselves, and so part of this kind of chain here. So we are a carbon neutral operator at all of the sites where we are the operator of the interplane fueling system, Halmstad being one of those sites. What that means is we bring into play the most efficient technology that we can in that system, have a long-term carbon reduction plan, and then we offset any unavoidable carbon emissions, and that is a continual review process. In terms of supporting our customers, we make available sustainable aviation fuel to help improve in that quarter, and then we work through a non-profit BP company called BP Target Neutral to make offsets available to all of our customers. I think the key reflection that I kind of take away from today is how much can be achieved through collaboration. It's a really great example in today's event of what happens when you bring together all the stakeholders in the industry. From the ABP perspective, just to close, we're really excited by the event today, and very committed to continuing to play our role in driving this transition.
Thank you, Tom. I am Andreas Teir from Neste, and I'm an optimist. Actually, I'm a stubborn optimist, and I will explain you later why. But today, as Tom also said here, we are witnessing the result really of a very fruitful collaboration in decarbonizing aviation. Although fuel producers and suppliers and sellers often at airports, somewhat fierce competition occasionally, but today is different. And this is why we are so proud to be here in front of this audience with AirBP together, really because a sustainable future requires us to think differently. It's more about cooperation rather than often competing. So between the two organizations, we have a shared vision, I would say that. So decarbonizing aviation calls for really collaboration between many different stakeholders. And this is a perfect example of that, what we're seeing here today. Really, so many joining together. And there also needs to be a will to find ways to overcome obstacles, because this is not easy. Anna knows that it takes a lot of work. So I also want to congratulate Braathens Airlines for really a bold decision, deciding to lower emissions at their aircraft through all by using sustainable aviation fuels. And I would say that all in all, Sweden is demonstrating global leadership in sustainable aviation. So just a bit on what we're doing at Neste. We are now increasing renewable jet fuel volume significantly over the next few years, so it will be available. Currently, we are ramping up our capacity to produce 100,000 tons of renewable jet fuel in total in Europe and in the US. And we have ongoing Singapore refinery expansion projects ongoing. And we will have a capacity to produce 1 million tons of low-emission renewable jet fuels by 2022. So that's in less than 3 years. Is that a lot? it's a lot. So on stubborn. Last week I met and learned from Cristina Figueres. Perhaps some of you know her. She is the former head of the United Nations Convention for Climate Change. I learned from her that if you want to change the world and you want to tackle climate crisis, you need to act as a stubborn optimist. So that's when I realized that actually I'm a stubborn optimist. We have invested a lot over the years in contributing to the market making of sustainable aviation fuels, advocacy in that part. So with that, I really must say this day is so important for us as well. The stubborn work pays off. And through that, we feel that we have also contributed to this, I'll say it now, historic day for the perfect flight from Halmstad to Bromma. And with all that said, I invite you all to be stubborn optimists in decarbonizing aviation and to create a healthier planet for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You can come if you want. First of all, one thing that you might like to know, because it's a figure and we like figures sometimes, the reduction today of fossil emissions and fuel was 46% compared to the carbon dioxide reduction was 46%. Good. So now you know that, and it's worth it. Yeah, and now about the way you do it, because we know that the way you fly makes a huge difference. And research is very important to know more about how we can optimize and create this climate effective future. And Ulf Ringertz, professor in aerodynamics, is here today to talk a little bit about the research that you've been conducting. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. So to be precise, I'm actually professor of aeronautical engineering, so I do more than aerodynamics.
Sorry.
This is my first flight. So my question is, what is the perfect flight? Because I don't know. I started studying aeronautics in 1980 at KTH, so I've done this for almost 40 years, and I've been optimizing all my career, and I still don't know what is the perfect flight. I do know what is a good enough flight, which I will mention at the end. So the environment is getting more and more hostile. Aeronautics is very popular as an engineering topic at my university. We have a lot of students study aerospace engineering, but the environment is getting tricky. We have words like flygskam and tågskryt, so those English-speaking should start practicing their Swedish, right? This is spreading. And I'm trying to work in this environment, and what I'm actually doing quite a lot these days is trying to get my colleagues who do cars, boats, buses, trains, and actually do more analysis of what they're doing. And we need to sort of focus quite a bit on this. Because computing an optimal trajectory is, to me, very straightforward. We have good performance data. It's proprietary. The aircraft manufacturers don't give it to us easily, but sometimes we get it. And there are numerical optimization techniques and solutions of differential equations that makes this quite feasible. And we've done a lot of flight testing with the Swedish Air Force, so we know we can compute these things. But the question is, what to optimize? Next slide, please. And another, I tend to be very politically incorrect. So this work we did more than 10 years ago, and then we ran out of funding. And we were actually trying to optimize the flight based on various different environmental indices, where you weigh the different emissions in different ways, depending on what is your view on what is good for the environment. And you can see this is a flight Stockholm-Luleå with the 737. You have altitude on the y-axis and you have distance on the x-axis, and you can see it looks very different depending on which environmental index you choose. I can say, Johan, then what you do is pretty good, but it's not perfect, right? Because optimizing fuel is a good decision because it typically has other benefits also in terms of other environmental indices. But if you choose something like the blue line, which is HTP, that stands for human toxic potential, meaning how dangerous is it to us rather than the climate, then you should fly very differently. So you have to sort of start working on this. And as a glider pilot, which I am, I mean, you didn't do the perfect flight either. You should have cut the engines on the final, feathered the propellers, glided landing, and you should not have taken the way all the way to the taxi route. You should go straight over the tarmac into the building. And so there's more to do, right? But we have to bend the rules to do it. But definitely there's more room. So my current main effort at KTH, we have travel regulations at my university. And the president has told me we should optimize all our business travel from environmental impact, time, cost, safety, and work environment. But the question is, how should we weigh these different aspects with each other? So last year we took a trip. One was with B.R.A, Stockholm, Berlin. My colleagues took an electric car. Someone went by bus. Someone went by train. And we flew 3-4 different ways. And now we're trying to agree on how should we evaluate these trips based on these 5 objectives. So the question arises, how much time to spend on the train to save something, perhaps on the environment? But then my train colleague, when he went to Copenhagen and stepped on the train, it turned out to be diesel powered. Problems. So this is the current effort we're trying to do at KTH, is trying to figure out, so we know what to optimize, and then we can start evaluating these different means of transportation in a more objective way, and then we also know better what to optimize. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm very sorry about missing on that. Next time I get you to talk, I will find the accurate title and maybe understand what it is about as well. For me, it's hard to think of sustainability without thinking of Sweden's Mr. Sustainable himself, who's here today. I don't know if he thinks he is, but Mattias Goldman from the Green and Liberal think tank Forest is here, and I welcome you. Mattias, I would like to know how I can fly tomorrow and today.
So would I.
Tell us more. Welcome.
This is me as an 8-year-old, very proudly flying as an unaccompanied minor to my grandparents in Switzerland. This is also much the same that my daughter did when she was 8 years old and we were living in Kenya, but her mother was staying in Sweden. And this is not just something I want to share with you, stories of my own background and how I used to live and how I used to proudly fly. It's actually something more than that. It's also a discussion I want us to have linked to the European elections that are coming up on the 26th of May, where we'll see that more seats than ever after those elections are going to be taken by people who feel that we should communicate and connect less, who feel that we should be afraid of each other, and who feel inspired by the great president in the West that we should raise the walls between us. I have a very different vision of what we need to be in the future. I am very convinced that it's great that we meet. I am convinced that the bigger the distance between us in terms of kilometers or miles, also in terms of ethnic background, religious background, culture, experiences, the greater the difference, the more important it is that we meet. And that is why I wear this with pride as part of my history, of my background. And that is why I am convinced that we need to very clearly answer your question about how we can fly in the future. And I want to bring up briefly 5 different areas where I think that we can work better. The first one is that I strongly encourage us to always take the plane, the flight, the aviation, when it is the greenest choice. I know that might sound absurd to you when we heard the flygskam that was just heard, and we heard the stay on the ground movement. But already today, and already excluding the perfect flight, which is, I believe, not going to be an everyday experience just yet, already today there's several routes where you should fly if you care about climate. Some of us, I know we're going to meet at Almedalen, and I'm going to be very upset with you if you do choose to go by ferry to Almedalen. It's a lot worse than going by the biofuel-powered ATR flight that you can choose, especially if the carbon offset is included. So we start seeing some routes also going to Helsinki. I'm fairly convinced it can easily be a lot better go by plane if you just get the biofuels right than to go by ship. And there's not all that many routes yet, but it's an important message that we will always make the greenest choice, and that will sometimes, and hopefully more and more often, become the aviation choice. And my second out of 5 brief suggestions to us all is to always make the greenest choice within aviation. I know that this airline here competes with other airlines on some different trajectories, and I've seen that not only when the perfect flight goes once, but on an everyday schedule, you can easily find a choice that's a lot greener than the airline we as citizens happen to co-own. So I think it would make sense to make those greenest choices. I was surprised when I met with a great friend of mine who's one of the prominent speakers of Stay on the Ground. And I saw on Facebook that he was in California having a great time. And so I asked him, how did you do that? You're Stay on the Ground. He said, well, this is vacation. And, and then I said, okay, well, California, that's a great choice because that's the only transatlantic flight you can actually take with a Biojet plane. KLM does that, KLM Air France, to be precise. And so I asked him, did you enjoy the biofuel plane? And he said, no, I flew with a different one. And I said, how come? And he said, I didn't know there was this Biojet. And I said, how is that possible? Because you both liked and retweeted my video about it. And he said, well, that's just a reflex we have as politicians. It doesn't really mean anything. So I strongly urge us all. And I'm glad to see that some of those booking things where we book our flights are also starting to point out the greener choices. And unless we do the greener choices, it's going to be very hard for you to quickly move into a greener and more sustainable business path for the future. Thirdly, we saw there was a 46 emissions reductions. That's great, but still means there's 54% left. I'm glad you do offset all the emissions. I think we all should always, not only when we go by aviation. I'm surprised how so many of us link carbon offsetting klimatkompensation strictly and only to flying. Like if there was no emission from that diesel train that was mentioned, or no emissions from the car, and no emissions from the food we eat. Of course we offset everything. And when we offset everything, it means that we put a price on carbon on everything. And we put a price on carbon on everything, it means that the greenest choice is also the cheapest choice. And fourth, and I know I'm probably not going to be invited back. Fourth, we also need to fly less. The target for Sweden on transport is to reduce by 70% the emissions from transport. And Swedavia and the aviation industry said, yes, we want to be part of that target also, because originally it was only a target for land transport. Aviation wanted to be part of it. And if you're doing minus 54, was it? No, minus 46. Minus 46, if you're doing minus 46, bravo, but it's not 70. So we also need to be better at not flying. I strongly suggest, and I was so impressed with B.R.A. when in your in-flight magazine, I was interviewed for your in-flight magazine, and so I thought, okay, I'll test the boundaries here. So I said, between Stockholm and Gothenburg, you take the train. And I was convinced it was going to be edited out, but it was in bold letters. Very bold from B.R.A. to do that. It's a very large emission reduction if you take the train in Sweden as opposed to the aviation. If you can't always do that, I took the train to Marrakesh for the climate meeting. I noticed not many others did. And even I didn't take the train to the climate meeting in Lima. So you can't always. But if you can't always, well, perhaps part of the trip you can take by something else than a plane. Or perhaps for all of us who love to go to Thailand and go put the kids at Bamseklubben, at the all-inclusive resort in Thailand, you know what? There's the exact same thing in the Canary Islands. It's halfway, half price, half CO2. So I think we should all try and reconsider all our transport needs and wants. And then finally, I'm at number 5. Flygskam was mentioned. I think Flygskam, I read it in Le Monde the other day, it wasn't even translated, it was Flygskam. En Suède on parle de Flygskam. And in fact, my belle-mère in France, she knows smorgasbord, she can't pronounce it, and she knows Flygskam, she can pronounce it even. But I want us to move away from Flygskam to fossil shame. It's not the aviation in itself, even though 46 is not good enough. It's not the aviation in itself, it's the emissions. And the emissions are no better when they come from another source of transport than from aviation. So we should move from Flygskam to fossil shame, and we should also move to bio-brag. Because we want to send a message, and we want this day to be the beginning of the new normal, where we bio-brag together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mattias, and I'm sure you all agree with me. If ever we do something like this again, we'll invite you. But when you look a little bit further, there are for sure new ways of flying that we haven't really experienced yet. Our next speaker just came home from California, where he has been presenting the future electric aviation future for a crowd of enthusiastic investors. Welcome, Anders Forslund from Heart Aerospace.
Thank you, everybody. So I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Heart Aerospace, and we develop electric regional aircraft. And I think it can't be no doubt in anybody's mind today that Scandinavia, that Scandinavia is leading the way towards a more sustainable air travel. We've heard from Malin from Fossilfritt Flyg here that Sweden has put forth a very ambitious agenda to make all domestic flights fossil fuel free by 2030, and also all the international flights departing from Sweden by 2045. And Norway aims for all short-haul flights to be 100% electric by 2040. Now, this may sound like a utopia, but electric aircraft are already here. Wait, let's go back. Yeah, this is the Pipistrel Alpha Electro. It's a two-seater aircraft that you can fly today, and I actually got the opportunity to fly it last year. It's a very impressive machine. It can stay airborne for about 1 hour, and it can travel at operating distances of up to 180 kilometers. So, last year, we started the consortium ELISE, Electric Aviation in Sweden, to start having an electric aircraft industry of our own here in Sweden. And we've grown from a small grassroots movement to now a vast consortium containing both the top technical universities and other stakeholders, such as the aerospace industry, the government stakeholders, the airports, and also the Svenska Flygbranschen, which is the industry organization of the aircraft. But in order to build a plane, we need to have a company. So that's why we started Heart. And the first goal of Heart was to raise the private capital needed to start building these planes. So, there we go. So, every year about 20,000 companies apply to Y Combinator. Y Combinator is a startup accelerator in the United States, and only 1.7% get accepted. And we applied, and we got in, and we just got back from spending 4 months in California growing our company. And in this process, we worked closely with B.R.A, together with 2 other airlines in Scandinavia, to really understand what the market is and develop a plane that is optimal for the Scandinavian conditions. And I'm going to show it now. Well, this is the Heart ES-19. It seats 19 passengers and has an all-electric range of 250 miles, which is 400 kilometers. And we will do the first full-scale flight of this in 2022 with an experimental aircraft, and by 2025 we'll be in full commercial service. I don't know what's happened here. Yes. Yes. And I don't know what this is, but he's very happy that we're doing sustainable things, I think. So, like, what the thing about electrification is that it not only is good for the environment, but it fundamentally changes the economics of air travel as well. Here we can see the movie, right? Oh, almost. Yeah, there it is. Well, so by going electric, you will save about 50% or 75% on the cost on fuel, and on top of that, you will actually save 50% on maintenance, which is another big driver of these costs. And let's go to the next slide. Okay, yeah. And then I can do this. So, and another factor is that these planes are actually more quiet, about 50% less noise. So that means that it improves the experience not only of the passenger in the plane, but also of the people on the ground living close to city airports such as Bromma. Yes, that was that. Finally, electric aviation has zero operational emission, and it will have the lowest carbon footprints of any mode of regional transportation. And this is also something that's scalable. It's something that we can export. And if Scandinavia can lead the way on this, it's great, but we can also, have electric aircraft in every corner of the world. And we want those planes to be made here in Sweden. And finally, we've done this before. In 1937, we started the aircraft industry of our own to deal with the threat. And that threat was from Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. And we started making our own planes to defend ourselves against this threat. And by the 1950s, Sweden, which is was this country of 6 million people at the time, had the world's 4th largest air force. And we developed some of the most innovative designs the world have ever seen. And I think today the threat looks very different. The threat is the climate. But the solution is very similar. We need to come together, collaborate, and mobilize to face this challenge and head on. And if we could build supersonic fighter jets with the tools we had in the 1950s, if we set our minds to it, we can make an electric aircraft in Sweden today. So, with that, I thank you.
What a perfect day. You've listened to many interesting people about this topic. It's a little bit past 1 o'clock, and I think we can maybe have 1 or 2 questions from the audience. I will jump down here so I can hand over the microphone to the one you want to ask a question to. Anybody who wants to ask a question to one of some of our speakers? Or are you just so tired and hot and okay? I know. So what I will do now then, I will ask Fredrik Kempe from the Swedish Confederation of Transport Enterprises Aviation Division to help me summarize this seminar. Fredrik, after what you've heard, what will you highlight? What will you take with you after this seminar?
I will take with me quite a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, the perfect flight is about to land. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, B.R.A, for inviting me here, and thank you for organizing this fantastic day and this fantastic flight. The perfect day, the perfect weather I think we had as well, the perfect airport, the perfect airline, the perfect aircraft, the perfect fuel, the perfect crew, the perfect cabin crew I haven't mentioned, and the perfect crew on the ground. I think we would like to give a big hand to all of them. So together they all created the perfect flight, right? The flight we have seen was most likely the most fuel-efficient flight flying in the world today. I don't know if it was a Guinness record, but I can imagine it was at least close to that. Jim, wherever you are, we will see what we can get out of the figures, but I think this was a world record. Now, I will try to put this in a bit of perspective still. The perfect flight took place in Sweden, and to me, that's no surprise. Not because we are at the moment discussing aviation a lot in Sweden, in politics and on the street, about its environmental impact and also its, let's say, benefits and its importance for Sweden. No, I think the reason is that we have seen that Swedish aviation is gradually taking the international pole position in the race for the greening of flight. The airline members of my association, the Swedish Confederation of Transport Enterprises, have over the years, and certainly in the last period, continuously delivered leading efforts to mitigate the environmental impact of their businesses. When it comes to B.R.A, you're even changing your business model to achieve that. And trust me when I say that there will be more. Because as we've heard today, also we are committed in Swedish aviation under the umbrella of Fossil-Free Sweden to having fossil-free domestic aviation by 2030 and all flights departing from Swedish soil by 2045. That's quite an, let's say, a reach. We are reaching far, but we know that we have to. And ladies and gentlemen, it's starting to work already. According to fresh statistics, the CO2 emissions from Swedish aviation is already decreasing. And according to the traffic forecast by the Swedish CAA, which came just last week, the CO2 emissions in Sweden in the period between now and 2025, although we will see a traffic growth of 13% over that period, will decrease by 13%. And that's pure efficiency gains from the Swedish aviation market. Now, these figures are truly inspirational. Now, we have witnessed today how extremely efficient aviation can be, but we are, as I said, not stopping here. We have heard about the great potential to do even more. We have heard about reducing our emissions by using biofuels. But we need that biofuel. And we urge you here today as well, and this goes also to our politicians, of course, to help us to get the biofuel that we need to fill our tanks. We have all the resources we need in Sweden, only from the forestry industry, the residue from the forestry industry, to create the fossil-free fuel, the biofuel that we need for domestic aviation. Let's build the market for bio-aviation fuel in Sweden now. And we've heard also about this great initiative for electrification of aviation. We've heard about the birth of possibly an electric plane manufacturer in Sweden that will put Sweden on the market again for selling, for producing the next generation of commercial airlines or commercial aircraft. With zero emissions, extremely low noise patterns, and much better economy, electrical aviation is not only there to help us reach our environmental goals, but also to change the domestic aviation as we see today and the regional aviation. Now, in a very short time, I have only had this work for a bit more than a year, we have gone from how is that going to work to wow, it's actually going to happen. So we in Sweden are going from the how to the wow now, and I invite you all to join us there. And I'm sure I speak for many of us when I see we want to see these planes in the sky as soon as possible. I'm sure that Johan and his crew would like to fly them as well. So good luck to you all. We have seen today that flying is very possible to do also with a very low environmental impact. And I think we all have a duty to support those who take the climate change challenge who take that challenge seriously and actually deliver results, as we have seen here today. Aviation is clearly important for Sweden, with our sparse population, with our great distances, and our location, which we can't really do much about, on the outskirts of Europe. Our businesses are interconnected with international businesses. And, you know, there's a saying, at least in Germany, where I lived for many years, that everyone knows a Swede. And that's because we Swedes travel to the world and make new friends, create new bonds. And that is nothing to be ashamed of. That's something to be proud of. And as Mattias discussed earlier today, aviation has in many ways created a lot of benefits to the world. It connects people. The national, international networks that we have of air connections are not just networks for people flying for fun. We all know that. No, it's a network of progress, of ideas, of aspiration, and of dreams, of friendships, and even of love, I would even challenge you to say. Make no mistakes, aviation industry is an industry of peace, prosperity, which we should take good care of and produce as good aviation with as low environmental impact as possible. So let's be all those stubborn optimists that we heard earlier today. I think it was a wonderful expression. And again, thank you for creating the perfect flight today, B.R.A. and Johan. And let's go from, well, I would not even say fossil shame, but fossil-free pride. That's my message. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fredrik. So, even this seminar has come to its end, and I want to thank our partners here today, all the speakers, and all you who attended the seminar. We will send you some presentations, some facts to the emails we have received afterwards, and we will probably also put some films on our website. Yes. So you will be able to find more information about all this by flygbra.se and by the email you will receive. So, or you just can contact me directly. So, thank you very much. Do you still have the energy to rise up and... No? Thank you.